Okay. How you guys? Okay, so this video is going to be on going through your transition of spiritual death to spiritual rebirth, okay? Now, in doing this video, we all understand that we are spirits first, put in this physical body, and we all know that, okay? And so what happens when we are put inside these physical bodies, we have a purpose, we have an assignment that we have to fulfill on this earth while we're here in these physical bodies. Once our assignment and purpose is fulfilled and we have basically fulfilled the contract that God needs us to fulfill, yes, we have a certain time where God already knows when we destined to return to be with him. Now, a lot of times, with a lot of us, we are old souls, okay? So when I say old souls, that means that if you've ever met somebody or you yourself ever felt like you have been here multiple times, you know what I'm saying? Because if you meet people with old souls, they always like, I've been here before, I've been here. And what happens is with a lot of times with people with old souls, it's like after God begins to clean the the debris of how they was raised, the debris of society, the debris of the trauma and the pain that they went through from their childhood to they past to where they are now, and even the debris of what they still go through internally now, right? So God has to begin to clean that stuff all off of us, right? And then as God begins to clean us up, God is able to reveal to us and give us downloads of things that was already put there in us before we even got in this body. But what happened was the reason why we could never get the understanding of who we are in God and the energy we carry and what we're destined to become and what we're destined to do in our purpose in this life is because the debris of society. You know what I'm saying? Like, because we have been programmed by society, because we have been programmed by our family and friends and boyfriends and girlfriends and pain and trauma and hurt. You know what I'm saying? So if you look at it, that's a whole lot of debris on us. So God has to then take the time to really clean us up little by little. And then as God cleans us up, he starts to give us more of his spirit in us. He starts to give us downloads. He starts to give us things that we didn't know that he could give us. He starts to take us on journeys spiritually. It's like our spiritual journey with God goes higher and higher and higher and higher and higher, because God is saying, because I'm cleaning all of this debris off of you through your circumstances and your situation, then I know that as I clean all of this debris off of you, I can trust you with my spirit. I can trust you to give what I need people to get. I can trust you that if I download in you what I need to download in you, you're gonna do what I tell you to do. You're gonna be quickened. It's like a quicken. You're gonna be quickened. I don't know how to snap at all neither. So it's like you're gonna be quickened. So once God begins to clean all of this debris up, and the reason why I'm breaking it down like this, because this is what it means when you're going through the transition of a spiritual death. The spiritual death and the transition has nothing to do with this physical body we in. It has nothing to do with how much money we got. It has nothing to do with how pretty we are. It has nothing to do with how much it has nothing to do with our relationships with other people. It has nothing to do with our businesses. It has nothing to do with none of that. When you go through your transition of your spiritual death, it's all based on God cleaning the debris and the trauma and the pain and everything of how society have laid so much on us to where now we have compromised who we are. Now we haven't even tapped into a portion of who God is in us. And that's the purpose of knowing. That's what I always talk about in my videos. Tapping into your own energy, knowing who God's spirit in you, being able to stand in your power and who God is in you and not fold. And that only happens as God begins to clean all of that debris, all of that pain, all of that trash that was piled on us from the time we first came into this world. And this is what a spiritual transition of death looks like. So when I say we are going through a transition of a spiritual death, it may be a lot of people right now that they are experiencing multiple different things so quickly all at once. And it may be like, hold up. Why is all of this coming all at once? You see what I'm saying? And so and especially if it's something, if you're going through a transition in your life where the transitions that you're going through is making you uncomfortable. It's causing you to have to sit still within yourself and with God. It's causing you pain. It's causing you tears. It's causing you all of that. That is all part of your spiritual death, the transition you're going through. And that is what your spiritual death transition looks like. But you got to understand this, that if God is allowing you to go through a transition of spiritual death, the reason why God is allowing you to go through that is because He's bringing you to a spiritual rebirth. You get what I'm saying? Even if y'all want to look at it from a physical aspect, right? If you look at it, you see people passing away, right? The physical body, you see people passing away out of their physical body. But then look at it too like this, that every time we look up, it's a new baby being birthed. It's a new woman pregnant with a new baby. So you see what I'm saying? So where there's a spiritual death or a physical death, it's always a new birth. It's always a new spiritual birth. It's always a new baby being born physically into this life. So that's what I'm saying, but this is not the physical, this is a spirit. And that's what happens when we are going through this transition of spiritual death, is that we're going through it because God is now wanting to bring us to a place of spiritual rebirth. And I say this in every video, you can't really know what love and what peace really is if you never ever experienced chaos, if you never ever experienced hate. You see what I'm saying? You can't possibly fathom or know what it feels to be in a state of darkness and depression if you didn't experience the light. You see what I'm saying? So had you not experienced that darkness, that depression, or the transition of what you're going through in your life, you wouldn't even be able to understand how God could pull you through it. So without pain, you wouldn't know what gain is. It's like without love, you wouldn't know what hate is. You see what I'm saying? Without darkness, you wouldn't know what light is. Without a spiritual death, you wouldn't even have a clue what a spiritual rebirth is. And this is what we are going through right now. Even with the young man that passed away by the police officer, that was a spiritual death that we are not understanding. That's a spiritual death as well as a physical death. But what that's meant to do is spiritually rebirth something in all of us. So this is what God was just showing me. He said people are going through a spiritual death, but they get to choose whether they want to come into the spiritual rebirth. Now I'll give it to you from another angle. And I say this in all of my videos, that when I lost my boyfriend a year and 4 months ago, I'm sorry. And I went into a state of depression. I went into a state of darkness. I went into a state of not wanting to even be here on this earth physically anymore. Okay. Now, I didn't know back then that I was going through a transition of a spiritual death. I had no clue. And if somebody would have tried to explain it to me back then, I probably would have said they lying. But to be where I am now, sitting in front of this camera, I know that I was going through a spiritual death a year and 4 months ago. And had I not chose to go through that transition of my spiritual death, had I chose to stay in that place of darkness and not come out at all, I wouldn't be right here. So in the state of where I was a year and 4 months ago, I was going through a transition of spiritual death. And it wasn't just I lost him. I was going through a lot of other things behind that, back to back to back to back to back. And to the average person, the stuff I was going through, the shit I was enduring, you would have pulled your hair out. You would have said, take me out. I'm done. So, I'm sorry, you guys. Hold on. So I say that to say this, that had I not went through that, I wouldn't have came to this spiritual rebirth. And that's what I came on here, because I want us to get it. I want us to understand it. That's just like if you going through difficulties in your relationships, romantically, friendships, family members, whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? If you feel like you going through a lot and you going through a lot of transitions in those situations, understand that if you're going through that transition, you're not going through it for nothing. You're going through it. And when I say this video is only for people that's willing to accept and understand that God is not going to leave you in a state of darkness. That's why God said in his word, he said, I put before you life and death. You get to choose. You get to choose whether you want to stay in that transition of spiritual death, or you get to choose whether you want to come into your spiritual rebirth. You get to choose. And that's why God said in his word, I put life and death before you. You choose. You have free will. But I would encourage everybody that even though you are going through a transition of your spiritual death, even though it feels like everything, the kitchen sink and everything is being thrown at you, I promise you, even when you are going to God and you saying, God, I don't understand, I don't get this, it's just not making sense, I need clarity. And even if the only words you ever hear God say is trust me, trust God. When I say it's been so many times where my back was against the wall and the kitchen sink and everything else was thrown at me all at the same time. And when it was times where I just sat outside, because I like to sit outside and look up at the stars and look at the moon. And I would sit outside and I would talk to God and I would say, God, I don't understand all of this. I don't understand why I got to go through it. And I promise y'all, tears would just be rolling down my face. And I would say, I don't understand this. And the only thing that God would tell me, I promise y'all, this was the only thing God would tell me. It was only 2 words he always told me. He said, trust me. That's all I ever heard God say. A lot of times in moments where my back was against the wall and I was going through so many transitions as far as spiritual death, all I kept hearing God say in my spirit was, just trust me. I know you don't understand it, but just trust me. I know you hurt, but trust me. I know you don't understand why I will continue to allow this person to treat you that way. But I need you to trust me, because this is all going to work out for your good in due time. But I need you to trust me that even when you're in a dark room by yourself, I need you to grab hold of my hand. And I need you to trust me. Trust me that I will never leave you, nor will I forsake you. Trust me that I will stick closer to you than a brother, than a sister, than a mother, than your boyfriend, than your husband. God said I will stick closer to you than anything. So I wanted to get on here because I wanted us to really understand that a lot of things that we all are going through right now, it is a transition of a spiritual death to a spiritual rebirth. How you choose to go through your spiritual death to your spiritual rebirth is all up to you. And what I mean by that is that if you choose to go through it being angry at the rest of the world, if you choose to go through it being bitter, if you choose to go through it doubting God, if you choose to go through it trying to hurt other people because you hurting, God said, I put before you life and death. You get to choose. You get to choose how you're going to go through your transition of your spiritual death and how you're going to come into your spiritual rebirth. You get to choose it. So God has not forgotten any of us. Even with everything that has went on with the young man George and him passing away, God haven't forgotten none of us. But God is also saying that this is a transition of a spiritual death to come into a spiritual rebirth, and how you come into yours is all up to you. So, I love you guys. You guys be blessed, and you are beautiful souls. And I enjoy making these videos. I really, really do. I enjoy being able to give you guys what God allows me to give, even in the moments where I don't even be expecting I'm going to do a video. Like today, I was in chill mode, was not expecting to do this. It came in my spirit, and I'm grateful for it. So I just encourage everybody to understand that you are not alone. We are all going through we are all going through a transition of a spiritual death to a spiritual rebirth. And we all gonna get there. We all gonna get to our spiritual rebirth. But how you get there, how you choose to get to your spiritual rebirth, it's up to you. It's totally up to you. And I hope that everybody chooses to get there trusting God. Even when it looks completely dark in the room, just trusting God that right now I can't see nothing up in this room. But I'm going to grab a hold of God's hand and I'm going to go through it. I love y'all. Be blessed.